Ladies and gentlemen, it's day 294 of the full-scale invasion of Russian aggression and the year 9 of the Russian war against Ukraine. My name is Andrei Shevchenko, and on behalf of Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform, I want to thank all the journalists who tell the world the truth about our fight for freedom. Now we will be talking about the charity from help from abroad for Ukraine and Ukrainians, and I want to invite Ms. Maryna Baidyuk, who is the president of the United Help Ukraine, based in Washington, D.C., United States of America. Ms. Maryna, you arrived in Ukraine after a large international conference which took place in Rzeszów, which was called World for Ukraine. It gathered many different charity organizations from around the world. What was your impression while arriving in Ukraine? What changes in the world of international help to Ukraine? Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here in Media Center. Andrei, thank you for the invitation. I came from Rzeszów. I was invited there to tell about the way our organization, United Help Ukraine, delivers the aid to the most affected layers of the population of Ukraine. The conference was quite interested in it, gathered both government and non-government organizations. Municipalities of many small towns and big cities of Ukraine were invited to. It was pleasure to meet each other, to talk, for example, with mayor of Mykolaiv and smaller towns such as Ochtyrka or Medvin. We had a conversation with mayor of Trostianets on the way the reconstruction is going on in those cities and towns mostly affected by this almost 10 months of a full-scale invasion, full-scale war in Ukraine. What changed is the way the world looks at Ukraine, not as the country who came to ask for something, but as a country who stands for freedom, for human rights. And it was my pleasure to see those big international organizations, how they help Ukraine now, not because it's necessary, but because they understand that it's the rebuilding, the reconstruction of the country, which will behead the world. Maryna, your organization, United Help Ukraine, is one of the biggest charity organizations working for Ukraine in the United States of America. We can confidently say that you're in top 3 or top 5 of the biggest players in this very important sector. What's difference of your organization comparing to others? What's your specialization? Yes, we're one of the biggest organizations in the United States, and we have 3 focuses. Our organization started back in 2014 when in Washington, D.C., the activists were gathering at Russian Embassy and White House telling about what was happening in Ukraine when the Crimean Peninsula was annexed, what we think was the beginning of the war. And with the beginning of the full-scale invasion, our organization grew like 1,000 times. Before that, we directed some help to some individuals or organizations. Within the last year, our organization provided help and aid amounting to $40 million, both coming from American individuals, small charity organizations, and the people were understanding that Ukraine requires aid, requires help, and everybody was helping with whatever they can. It was both financial donations, and we were receiving a lot of physical material aid. The state of Maryland provided medical equipment in amount of $5 million. The equipment for firefighters provided by the governor of the state of Virginia. So that aid comes in mass. And it was interesting to observe how in March and April our small organization was growing, and how people were coming to us with open hearts, and we were receiving very touching letters from the kids who had their piggy banks, as they call it, where they were gathering their money for their school lunches, so they were coming with their piggy banks, like $10 or $15 with a note for children of Ukraine. It was so pleasant to see those rays of light coming from the children of America. And our post PO box that we have in Maryland, in the state of Maryland, the post office had to establish another PO box for us because we had such a number of letters and donations that they were forced to give us another box. So those were checks from regular Americans. Sometimes we were getting checks for $1 million when we opened the letter with a $1 million worth check. It was quite surprising, but the organization which provided that help said that there were no limitations imposed on the check. They said they understood that Ukraine needs help right now and we can use that financing for anything. So three areas where we allocate our funds. When I say the Ukrainian defenders, I say it's our defenders. When I say I'm American, the world knows that the Ukrainian defenders are our defenders. So we focus a lot on tactical medicine, on equipment, and we have to save the most lives of Ukrainians possible. We understand that the best ones leave us now, and we want to save the most Ukrainians who are the best in their nation. Secondly, it's medicine. We help a lot of the hospitals. Within this period, we help probably 11 regions, more than 30-40 hospitals in total, who keep receiving aid on a regular basis. We talk to doctors. We know exactly what they need. It's not some kind of something that somebody donates, but it's that targeted aid for specific hospitals. If we have to equip a surgery, for example, like in Kharkiv, the doctors came to us and they asked to equip another surgery room. So we did everything we could to provide this targeted help for equipping of that surgery room in that hospital. And third is the humanitarian help. We understand that the economic situation is difficult. We try to provide ratios, we try to provide hygienic sets, and we focus on occupied territories, and we work with our partners who send this targeted help, this targeted aid. Do we have questions in the studio, please? Nadia Yurchenko, Ukrinform, I would like you to share your observations as to the trends for sharing this aid, this help. There was such an explosive help in the beginning. Is there a mood that, all right, we already did what we could, maybe now it's time for others to help? What is the general mood of Americans? Thank you very much for these questions. This is a very timely question because obviously the financial help decreases. It decreases a lot. However, still the Americans keep coming and they do everything possible to support us, to help us. Large corporations, large charity organizations continue to help. I can tell you on the example of our organization, yeah, it went a level lower, but it doesn't fade generally. People express their opinion that they are now seeing Ukraine as the country which defends them as well. And secondly, is the country which will help no matter what, which will win no matter what. And if it was first to defend Ukraine, now it's like we do everything for victory. And this is what I'm seeing now in American society, in American crowds. And they not only want to support Ukraine, but they want to do everything possible for the victory.
Thanks for being out. Two questions. How much have you raised from individual donors of the total 40 million? And second question is, could you talk a little bit about how you establish legitimacy among individual donors? Because a lot of people don't know how to donate to Ukraine in the United States and what's legitimate and credible, and then other organizations that may be more circumspect.
Great question. So I would say probably 50% we receive from individuals. So out of what we've raised so far, I would say about 50 were raised from individuals. If that's okay, I'm gonna, do you want me to switch to Ukrainian or
No,
you're okay?
please.
Okay.
Keep going.
Good. So about 50% was actually of donation, individual donations. Now, the second question is actually very important because oftentimes Americans would donate to larger or nonprofit organizations. And it is definitely harder for smaller organizations to establish this credibility. We've been working since 2014, so people knew us. They knew our standing in terms of our help to Ukraine, but also they saw very much a very good transparency, right? So they know exactly where the money was spent. They know that we were actually, up until 2022, we were 100% volunteer-based organization. So they know we never had a big overhead. They knew that we were very clear about our mission and also about focuses. And this is actually going back to a question of raising awareness, because number four, the number four project that, or program that our organization is involved is raising awareness and advocacy for Ukraine. Because we feel that as a small organization, and many small nonprofit organizations can do that much, but we definitely need support from government. I mean, Ukraine needs governmental support from many different countries in the US, I mean, US and Europe including. Our organization started protesting and rallying in 2014. And our first rally in front of the White House was held January 8th, a month and a half before the full invasion. And we were there, just a small group of activists, maybe 30, 40 of us, standing there in front of the White House and demanding the US government to impose sanctions now, to cut the Nord Stream 2, to provide full support to Ukraine, provide weapons, provide humanitarian aid immediately. And we did that every single weekend. Our activists grew bigger. I mean, the number of our activists grew bigger and bigger. At the Russian embassy, we were also protesting the possible war. And then we held a large rally. Thousands of people gathered in front of Lincoln Memorial on February 20th, which was the day of remembering Heavenly 100. We had hundreds of media and press present. We clearly stated what we wanted at that time. And we said, the war is coming, and the US government is not doing enough to support Ukraine before it starts.
And I also understand that being based in the Washington, D.C. area helped you to be visible, and that helped you to build this credibility and reputation.
That's right.
Що змушує мене поставити наступне запитання про плани.
What makes me ask another question is your projects and plans, what we've seen in Ukraine, the communication with your team that works here on the ground. What are the new ideas? What are you coming back to Washington, D.C. with? Those are not the new ideas, but it's continuation of the old ideas that we had in the beginning of this autumn, of this fall. We've seen what's going on with the blackouts, that Russia specifically and purposefully bombards the infrastructure to have the people left without heat, without water. I'll tell you, it's impossible. It's my first arrival from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and I've felt it by myself that I feel myself safe here. It's my first feeling. How I feel in my motherland, how I feel is safe and secure, and this security comes from the people being united. I'm talking to those people who are united and they do everything for the victory, who in a very calm and steady manner, they achieve their goals, the goals that we set to bring this victory closer. And with what I'm seeing, it's first of all generators. We procure them in large amounts. And second is communication. And we started the Starlink projects back in March, when we started talking to the representatives of the company here, who said that it will be absolutely necessary for the communications. Starlinks should be in Ukraine, even if there is communication. Such things will arise. We started it back in March. We started doing it with our partners. 3 organizations gathered together, and we procured 288 Starlink terminals distributed all across Ukraine now, and they were delivered in a very timely manner before October, when the massive missile strikes started on the infrastructure, on the nodes of communication. Those Starlinks, they were already in place in many cities along the front lines and other cities, including Kiev, Lviv, and so on and so forth. 288 Starlink terminals is very little number, so our next project will be to maintain the existing ones. So one thing is to procure it, another thing is to maintain its service. The service is very expensive. One Starlink costs $160 per month, so it makes $56,000 per month to maintain only the existing communication of the existing Starlink terminals. And we will maintain these 288 Starlinks, but in the same manner we want to procure more of these Starlinks and generators for the resilience stations, and we will continue to maintain the service of those Starlinks that are already here and that we are about to procure, as long as it will be necessary. I understand that we need electricity, we need light, and we're working on that. If there are any more questions in the studio, please let us know. If not, I will ask my question. You've grown up in Kiev, it's your native city. Just in a human manner, what are your impressions here? Like, if you come back to Washington, D.C., what have you been impressed with? Any episodes that you can tell in Washington? There is a number of episodes, but I would like to say one important thing that I've seen in Kiev, that the city lives its own life. Every single person tries to do what they were doing before, but they try to do it better and with more, put in more soul. And you can see it at the restaurant where there is no light, but still there is a waiter coming up to you who will tell you everything. For example, you get in a taxi and a person gives you a little bit of warmth from them. They will show you and tell you everything, and you can feel it in every step. We were talking today with the doctor who visited Irpin. They've been there for 2 weeks from the full-scale invasion up to 8th of March. And he was telling us this story when people were coming within those 2 weeks to that hospital and helping with what they could. Everybody was in their position and they were doing everything for the victory. This is something I will carry with myself, and this is what gives me the feeling of security, of safety, of life going on and will be going on. And I hope that we will learn some questions or some lessons from this, I would not say tragic situation, but we see what's going on, but people stand united. They understand what they're doing, where they're doing that, and they do everything for victory. Maryna Baidyuk, the president of the charity organization United Help Ukraine, based in Washington, D.C., United States of America. Thank you for this briefing, and we invite everybody to follow our announcements. Ukraine Media Center, Ukrinform, stand with Ukraine. Thanks a lot.